Welcome to Man of Conversations. I'm Brandon. I'll be leading this discussion group. I guess we can go in order top left on down.
Hi, I'm Ari.
Hi, I'm Lauren.
I'm Christina.
All right. Would anybody like to go first on the topic, or would you guys like for me to spearhead?
Hmm.
You can go ahead.
Yeah.
I knew y'all was gonna say that. Okay, so the topic is finding ourselves, and I think I'm a couple years older than majority of you. And the tough thing is, just when you get to my age, I don't know why I'm talking like I'm 20 years older than y'all or something, but when you get to my age, sometimes you get to the point where you start kind of questioning yourself. You start looking around. It might seem like other people doing a little bit better than you. And you might find yourself confused, almost doubting your path and decisions you made, feeling like you kind of behind, trying to catch up. And I think that's the most difficult thing that you start to see at the age I'm at. Anybody got something they want to add to that?
This just conversation in general. It makes me think of a joke. I kind of made a joke that a while ago that I was going through a quarter life crisis instead of like a midlife crisis. I was going through a quarter life crisis because I just kind of felt basically what you already said. Just to reiterate that I was just based on like how I thought I would look at myself when I was like 18. I didn't think I would be at this point. I thought I would be like a little farther ahead and like as far as schooling and like working and stuff like that. So I think it's really easy and like this specific time frame, like this 18 to 25, that age range, it's really easy to compare yourself to other people and kind of just look at other people's situation, wonder why am I not there yet? Am I like too far behind? Am I moving too slow? What's going on? So
I feel that. I say that too. Like, Brandon, I think you like a few months older than me. I know your birthday's in like December, so like I definitely feel that too. Like at 23, you see the people that's like I it's crazy to me. Like I have a friend from high school that's married, and to me that blows my mind. Like
Right.
she's like married, she got a house, and it's not of like a sense of jealousy, but it's just a sense of like wow, like you have like so many things crossed off your list.
Right. Yep.
And yeah. And then just me personally, I don't mind mentioning that like I'm 23 and I've been in school. Like I went to school fresh out of high school, but I still ain't got my degree. So like sometimes like looking at stuff like that is just how you sitting back like, dang, am I like where did I mess up? Like am I doing the right thing? Like just things like that. And so what I will say though, like through like going through that, the thing about me in college is I started off like having my mindset like I just in high school I just knew I was going to be a teacher. I just knew I was going to go to Eastern, get my education degree, like and if I stayed with that, I would have been like year 2 of teaching right now.
Hmm.
But I ended up changing my major to psychology, and going through that process, that is kind of taught like kind of steered me away from comparing myself to others, because I'm at the point where I've seen so many people my age and like people younger than me, graduating before me. And so it's really had me just really focused on trying to find what's best for me. So I feel like that kind of brings it back to the topic of like finding yourself is like really everybody got different stuff going on.
Right.
And not to bring this into like a advice giving type of thing, but this is really what I do is like I just really charge like my experiences to what I got going on. My life not gonna look like everybody else's. And
Right.
even with people older than us, like in hindsight things seem different as time goes on, but even like the generation before us, like they still had to deal with those things, and like some people accomplishing more things before them. So it's really just like this kind of age group of really finding yourself, and it's not as you shouldn't feel as isolated as you do, because you'd be surprised how many people, if not everybody, feel that way at some point.
Yeah. You got anything, Ari?
Uh, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I'm the youngest out of everybody here, so there's a lot of pressure for me to be great and be successful and do things. And so that kind of it like makes its way into like me stressing about the stuff that I'm supposed to be focused on, like school and just making sure that I'm good, like mentally, physically, emotionally, and stuff. And so sometimes I catch myself like just really getting into it, like worrying about what I'm gonna be doing tomorrow, what I'm gonna be doing in a year, and like I see all these people around me, just being in the college setting in general. Everything moves so fast. Like everything, you have an expectation to meet just with your classes, but then all your teachers are like, "Oh yeah, these internships," or like me being in acting, like starting to do industry stuff and all that. And so it kind of you get caught up in the whirlwind of stuff. So sometimes I do have to take a step back and be like, "Girl, you're 18. Like you just got here. Like you don't have to be doing all this stuff." Um, but at the same time, it's kind of like it's okay to like think about that and worry about that, but not necessarily letting it take over like everything else that I have going on, which is easier said than done. But it's more so kind of just a remembering thing, especially since like the pandemic and everything just stopped. And now everybody just expects you to pick up and keep going and like keep moving forward with everything going on. But it's like we can't just go straight back to normal. Like everything was shut down for 2 years. Like we're all of us are behind in some way or another. And so I feel like that's one thing that helps me get through is like I feel like we all need to be more forgiving for with ourselves just because like everything got thrown off. And just with that, and even outside of that, it's kind of just like, like you were saying, Christina, like comparing yourselves to other people and like everything that's going on, it happens, but you shouldn't let that like kind of deter you from like what you want to do or where you are right now. And it's just a journey. Like there's a lot of stuff that I do struggle with in terms of like finding myself, trying to figure out where I fit into places and like being in a new place and a new setting and stuff. But ultimately it's kind of just like, you know, everybody's doing what they need to do. Everybody's got their own stuff. And so if you focus or worry about what everybody else is doing, then obviously you're not going to have enough time to actually do what you want to do or worry about your stuff. So,
Yeah, that was real good, especially that part you said about forgiving yourself. I think that is the first place you got to start. Well, I wouldn't say the first place, that's the second place. I think the first thing I would say is accountability. You got to be able to look yourself in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I didn't do this right. I should have did this. I should have did that. Now, not dwelling on it to the point like where you just in a funk about it or you feel like you can't get out your situation. But you got to be able to know what you did wrong. And like I said, forgive yourself, kind of let it go that you didn't do whatever it was you felt you didn't do. And then you got to know, where do I want to be and how do I get there? And I think it starts just like that. And at the end of the day, you can't you can't focus on what somebody else is doing, because I mean you hear stuff all the time about people being in their 30s, having a roommate, whatever. Then you look up, they strike gold, they a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? And my point in saying that is, it might not happen for you as fast as it's gonna happen for somebody else. And I think that's why you just gotta have an intention what you're doing every day. What am I doing to get me closer to whatever it is my ultimate goal is?
I'm definitely
yeah.
feel that. I would say a big part of finding yourself really is that like it's it seems like to jump to planning is kind of skipping a step of finding yourself, because sometimes it's it takes stuff to figure out what do you want to do exactly.
Right.
But like just speaking from the perspective that, say, you know, you have like something like, you know, like what you want your life to look like, even if it's as like, it might not even be career wise, but something like lifestyle wise, like what type of
Mm-hmm.
house you want to live in, what type of setting you want to be around, what type of people you want to be around, you know, things like that. And it's really just like that focusing on yourself is like that like realistic planning of what you need to do to get there. You know, like you can have your goals and you can manifest and, you know, pray on it and all of that, but there really are like concrete steps you have to take to get to that point. and and I think that's something that like I'm kind of dealing with now, is since, you know, I changed my major to psychology. You know, I'm claiming I want to be a therapist and things like that, and there are things I have to cross off my list in order to do that. Like that's a long process of schooling, and like even right now I'm not in school right now, so like I need to start figuring out where I want to go to school, what's going to be the right school for me, since I have had some experience with school, like trying to use those mistakes that I've made in the past, to help me make better choices, like in my next schooling decisions and things like that. Like that's kind of a struggle, because sometimes, you know, in that moment where you're making decisions, like at the time, Eastern was really like the best choice for me, like price wise, location wise, major wise. Like that was just it. Like there was no reason for me to even apply to another school. So
Right.
like change my major is like, it's been real hard. I'm not gonna lie, you know? Like it's like I feel like I gotta start all over. I feel like I gotta rethink everything. And that's just like a totally different process. I guess I don't really know where I was going with that, but that's where that took me. Just
I
about
really think
planning.
it's like great that you brought up that point. Is just the process and starting over and like doing something new. I think it's really important to realize that we're young. Like nobody here in
Yeah.
this chat is like even 25 yet. So like,
Yeah,
we're still young. We still have like plenty of time, and not to use it as a crutch to like be lazy or just waste away at your youth or anything, but just you have plenty of time. And I definitely personally relate to like your experience, because when I was in high school, I was like, I'm gonna go to Central Michigan and get my biology degree. I'm gonna go pre-med track, blah blah, and that's just what I thought I wanted. And to be honest, I really didn't want to do that, but I had been saying it for so long. I was like, I'm just gonna accept that this is just. I've been saying this, so I'm just gonna stick with it, basically. And I really just wasn't happy with the choice that I had made, but I was like, I'm already in it, so why change now? But I have plenty of time to change, so I changed my major to psychology too, which is actually
That's
funny.
right.
But that's something that I actually enjoy. Like I like learning about this. It's something that I could actually see a career in. And I think it's important to identify your passions and things that you actually want to do, instead of things that you just started and you feel like you need to
Yes,
finish
that's
them.
good right there.
Don't just,
That's real good.
okay, well, I started this, I'm just gonna finish it just so it can be done. Then you're gonna be like mad in a career, in a job, in a relationship that you don't want to be in.
I definitely.
Yeah, I was like, just to touch on that, like, I feel like that's super important just with the process of like growing up in general, like allowing yourself to change or form different opinions or perspectives on like what you want to do, and like realizing that you yourself are going to go through, you're going to have all of these experiences that may change who you are completely from like 1, 2, 3 years ago. And so like you were saying, just I feel like that's kind of a phase a lot of people go through that they don't realize they can take control of, I guess, just because when we're in like middle school and high school, we set all these goals. Like we're very ambitious as like young people. We're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is how I'm gonna get there. But like once you get to a certain point, and like even though I this is like my first real year of college, like you live completely differently than you've been living your entire life. Like not only do you have the responsibility of school, but you have the responsibility of your own self-care, of your own like standing on who you are and what you want to do and who you present yourself as to the rest of the world. And so you have a greater responsibility than you used to have, which leads you to have different experiences and leads you to be a different person. And the thing about that is like, it's hard to let go of like what you feel like you're supposed to be in those situations, but it's okay to do that. Like, you don't, nobody is forcing you to be some type of way or like do certain things. And the only person who really has control over that is you. And it really is important to kind of let that go and branch out and like be, I mean, like be who you want to be, even if you feel like it's not who you're supposed to be, which is not, I mean, who is anybody supposed to be? Like,
Right.
we're all different people. We're all unique. We all have our own things that we do and that we provide to like just ourselves and other people. And so I would say, like, I feel like that's really important to know, just because you shouldn't be putting yourself in a box. Like, you shouldn't be limiting yourself from all of the other things that you know you're capable of or that you can do.
One thing I can say too that's like really big about diving into finding yourself is really like pay attention to yourself and like respect what you want. You know, like a lot of times you feel like when you getting older, like you have more, I mean, you do have more responsibilities, you know, like you have to a pretty common thing, you know, getting a job, trying to provide, you know, certain things because like you need to obtain certain things to get where you want to be. But I think a big thing is also like respecting your wants and what you want to do, like your interests. Because a lot of times, you know, things they seem so cool, like just any type of hobby or something like that, you know, like say somebody like they in high school, and while they in high school they feel like they like reading, they feel like they might want to be a writer type of thing, but they kind of just like brush it off and dive into the workforce and, you know, getting that schedule going, and all you doing is working, resting on your days off, trying to like, you know, buy a few stuff to like get that retail therapy type thing, you know. but
Mm-hmm.
but like if you was to actually sit down and take the time that it takes to like work on your writing, if it could either turn out that you love it, you're great at it, you need to look more into jobs that might surround, you know, your writing, not just trying to get a paycheck. Although in some situations, you know, money is obviously
Right.
important,
Right.
you know, so it's a hard balance. But that's a part of also finding yourself too, is like prioritizing what you need to prioritize. But or it could turn out to be you start writing and you're trying it out for a while and it just seems like, you know what, like I don't like this, like, you know, like this is like yeah, things you like, you know, it's hard work and it's gonna take effort and things like that. But I think it's important to step away, you know, from what you don't like some things is really just like draining you, and it kind of seems like there's no personal benefit, you know. Like you could even be a good writer and other people might enjoy your writing, but if that's not helping you personally, like your mental health, your interests, your time, like you feel like it's a waste of time and everything is just like, oh, so much work about it, you know, like respect yourself and be like, I'm gonna take a break for this, I'm gonna try something different, and I'm gonna dive into, you know, a different interest or something like that. I also feel like trying new things is like really great too, cause like Ari was saying, like as you a kid, like you got, you know, you got all these dreams and like, you know, ambition and stuff, like all these things you want to try and stuff like that. But at the same time, like there's so much out there that you might have never heard of, you might have never thought that you would like, but you don't really know those things until you get out there and really like dive into it, you know. I think that
Mm.
experience is one of the greatest teachers, so that's just a little encouragement to get out there.
You know, I want to touch on what you said about that writing thing. That stuck
Mm-hmm.
with me a lot because something I always say is, and I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Like me, I didn't go to school. Just being 100% honest, I never cared about school. Like it just didn't mean like it just didn't mean nothing to me. Like you can ask my sister, I remember at a certain point, my parents would be talking about me about my grades and like I just didn't care. Like I was like, I'm gonna just graduate and I'm off to the races from there. And something I realized is like I had a passion for writing, and like my sister, comparing me to her just because that's the easiest thing to do with her being my sister. She is like, if you put us like in a classroom together, she's like way smarter than me, like book wise. You know what I'm saying? And I had to realize like that's not really my gift. Like if I really wanted to, I think I could do pretty well at school if I put my mind to it. But that's not my gift. Like my gift is more of in creativity and like social talking to people, things like that. That's like something I always kind of excelled at. And I realized like about a year ago that I kind of want to go into the path of, like you said, doing more writing, storytelling, directing, things like that. And I was talking to one of my cousins about it. And the thing is, you kind of don't, especially with black as a black man, you know, it's kind of always this thing with black men with like you as you see the women doing more than us. Most women are in school more than black dudes, and I kind of didn't want to feel like I was giving into that stereotype almost. But something I was seeing was I'm like I knew I'm like I can't go do something else just because that's what I think I should do it because I don't want people to look at me and be like, oh, you shouldn't be doing it. Like I was thinking about going to school. I mean, like going to be an electrician and all of that. Because I knew if you tell people you're doing something like that, they go, "Oh, that's good." They're gonna kind of look at you in a positive light. But if you if somebody would come to me and ask me what I'm doing, I say, "Oh, I'm trying to get into writing and direct." They go, "Oh, okay," kind of like they like right, like another one of these type of dudes. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of didn't want to do that, so I told myself, "Oh, I'm gonna be an electrician and I'm gonna try to go into the direct or whatever set on the side and like kind of do it half-heartedly." And then I thought about it. I'm like, being in school for electrician, that's gonna take me about 4, almost as long as college to complete. And yeah, I'll be making good money. But I'm like, if I really work at this goal for the next 4 years, I could be I could be a millionaire if this go my way. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I didn't realize that I always had that vision. Like, you can ask my sister when we was kids. I used to like write little stories, and I used to make them, her and my cousins, all go in the room, and they ain't even want to do it. I used to like force them to play these little games and be directing and telling them, "Yo, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way." And I didn't realize I had that vision from the time I was uh, probably 6, 7 years old. I always had that storytelling gift, and that's just something that's in me. And I realized I'm like, even if I do become an electrician, I'm never going to be really satisfied with that. And I wish I would have went into it further, like I said, at 18, but I'm only 23 now, so it's not too late at all. You know what I'm saying? And that's just something I'm realizing. You got to find what it is you really want to do, and you got to find out. And now I'm in the steps of the process of finding out how am I going to do it.
Yeah, I feel like that's like super important because it's something my parents always tell me this, and I always stick with it no matter what anybody else says. Is that if you have a plan B, you're not gonna do your plan A. It's just not gonna happen because
Right,
you're
right,
literally planning to fail. If you have a backup plan, you're not gonna put your everything into the thing that you actually want to do. If you have this backup plan, because you're focusing your energies on two different things, and like it is important to have another idea. It's like something that you can like pull out of your back pocket, but it isn't okay to not have faith
right,
in
right.
yourself for that first initiative, and so much that you need to dive into something else to make sure that you'll be okay. Because if you really are passionate about it and you really do love it, you're going to become successful in what you do just because you are going to work for it and have that passion. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a question posed in the chat. Is it hard to balance God and building a life or career? And me personally, not to like negate what y'all been saying. I just want to
Yeah, no, you
segue into
good.
this next question. But I think at this age, how do I just say this?
Just say it. Say the truth.
Yeah, we've been basically forming our own opinions of the world and how we view just God and spirituality versus religiousness and stuff like that. So I think this relationship has become more personal, I would say, because especially with like a career and with school and stuff like that, pretty much once I like got to school and I was at school, it was still like church being streams and stuff like that, but I just wasn't making it a priority because, when I was in high school, I was at church Tuesday,
Right.
Wednesday, Sunday, and then any extra day would be something serving, dancing, all this stuff. And I was just like, okay, of course I love God. I like, come on now. I love God, but I was just like, okay, I can finally get a break from this a little bit now that I'm at school and I can just focus on enjoying
Right.
myself and not having the responsibilities of church and stuff like that. And I think when doing that, it definitely puts a strain on your personal relationship with God. I think people sometimes confuse your personal relationship with God with your relationship with church, pretty much. So you may not have a great relationship with your church or church family, stuff like that, but I think it's really important to learn how to build a personal relationship with God, especially since you're not going to have like being away at school or moving out of the state and just coming home during breaks and stuff like that. You're not going to have that actual physical church to just dive back into. So yeah, that's how I'm kind of feeling.
If I could touch on that too, that's a good question because, like, yeah, when I went to school initially, like, every time I visited, it's just like, okay, Sundays, you going to church. Like, if you come back and you can make it to Wednesday rehearsals for choir, like, dance, do that. Like, you're like, that's just what you do on those days of the week type thing. And then, like, when the pandemic hit, I was still at school and I wasn't in a dorm at the time. So this is me like in an apartment, like just living. Like I had roommates, but I'm on my own. Like if I decide to get on that church live, like, that's my decision and stuff like that. And with this
Right.
pandemic, it's like, I won't say, I don't think I can necessarily say that like okay. No, I did stray from God a little bit. And not necessarily in my actions, but just necessarily in my discipline with God. Like I used to have a habit, like no matter what happened that day, no matter what's going on, like no matter how tired I am, before I actually like let my body fall asleep, like I'm talking to God before I fall asleep. Pandemic hit and I just like, I don't know. I felt like I was starting to feel more selfish and I felt that I should just be focused more on me. I felt that not that I had given God enough because I do still, one thing I've never lost my respect for God. I'll say that. So like, I always like held him like on a pedestal, that I felt that he should be on. But like, in terms of just like day to day, I slipped up on prayers, and then like I knew that the church was doing, the live streams and stuff like that. But I'm just like, I just don't have to do that. I just got in the habit of just like literally chilling all day long, like not doing nothing, like maybe going to the store just because it's across the street if I needed to do something. And I got used to that. And I almost like forgot, that I'm even like, like that I had those standards for myself. And so like now I'm trying to dive back into that prayer life that I lost. Like even now, like there's plenty of nights that I don't pray when I should pray. And I'm glad this conversation is being brought up because that's a discipline I need to return and give myself, because I will say like I had a much better peace of mind when I did have that closer relationship to God. Like I had less worries, and yes, like a part of that is because me being young and having less responsibilities, but at the same time, like I just forgot like how important it was. And yeah, so like I guess I really just wanted like, I don't even know like exactly where I'm going with that, but because y'all know I be rambling and talking, but like it's like it's just really hard. And this kind of goes back into like, okay, I mentioned in the group chat that, you know, I'm trying to work on like choosing myself, like, and balancing that with, you know, putting effort into like friendships, relationships, family, and things like that. And like, I was really kind of feeling like I told myself like, well, God loves me, so he wants me to focus on me too. So like if I go a few days, you know, without talking to him, you know, he ain't gonna hate me and nothing like that. Like trying to use that as like a crutch or an excuse and things like that. But faith without work is dead. That's facts, you know. So that's something I like definitely had to learn, and I need to dive back into because it's hard, especially like since I've started working. Like I've had jobs like for years, you know, type thing, but especially with me now, like I'm not in school right now. I'm taking like a break or whatever. I don't know what to call it. I'm not in school right now. So my every day is like work, 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 work. The days I don't gotta work, I'm sleep or like I'm handling any other business I gotta handle. And I haven't been to church even though I've been back at home since June because I moved out of my apartment like end of May, and I haven't been going to church like I should have in the past. Like I've like I told them like my availability would be like I can't work Wednesdays, I can't work Sundays because, you know, I gotta go to church. I got responsibilities to handle. This the first job right now that I didn't tell them that. And so I'm working Sundays, like every Sunday I work. Can't go to church. And like my mama, like, you know, she the only one in the household going to church at this point. So it's like the vibes is just really kind of weird, you know, hearing about people missing me at church and stuff like that when I'm at home, had the opportunity, you know, to avoid that or pick a better job, you know, where I didn't have to deal with that. And it's kind of catching up to me now. And, you know, I find myself even listening to gospel less. So the past 2 weeks, I've been trying to put on some Kirk Franklin, put on some Fred Hammond, trying to do some like worship on my own, things like that. And it takes work, but I will say though I'm doing a little better, and this conversation going to have me thinking about it more. So
Okay. What happened to Ari?
I don't
I'm
know.
not.
I was definitely thinking that.
You might have been having a technical difficulty, but I wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying, especially with like the working and availability and stuff like that. But I remember when I was working like during the summer, I was working like a bunch of hours, and I did the same thing too. Like I didn't put like requesting Sundays and stuff off because I was just like, I'm working anyway. Like this is my priority right now, and this is what I need to be focused on: working and making money and preparing to go back to school and stuff like that. So I think I was prioritizing work a little bit more than my relationship with God and just relationship with church in general. So I think obviously I'm not like set in my career now. I'm working like retail and receptionist type jobs right now because that's basically really all I can do at this point. But I'm sure as my career goes farther along, it's going to be more difficult to create that balance between work and church. And then, of course, when I get older, maybe I'm having a family, the balance between work, church, and a family. I think that's something that you're just going to have to work at. Obviously, I don't have any experience working at it right now, but
Right.
I just think in general, that's something that you're just going to have to kind of figure out just by going through it. There's really no plan except just to go through it.
Okay, I guess I can jump in on this part of the question. I'm gonna be honest. With me going through everything I'm trying to do, a relationship with God, it wasn't even like a priority for me. And what I mean when I say that, like you said, I love God and all those things too. But with me, it got to the point I was kind of using God almost as a genie, if you will. And what I mean by that is just, oh, God, can you help me get this? God, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? And I was getting everything I needed to get done. And it got so crazy to the point I was literally like almost making negotiations with God. Like I remember one time, me and my friends, we used to well, not sometime, a lot of the time sit out in front of the church during church. And I remember I was like, man, I should go in church, sit down and get some word. I'm like, you know what? I ain't going in church till God give me a job, like the job I want. Then I end up getting the job I want. Okay, you ain't got no excuse. You got to go in church now. Then it got to the point I wanted to get a car. I didn't have one. I started paying my tithes, praying on it. Then as soon as I get the car, I stop paying my tithes, stuff like that. And it's like it got to the point I was in a situation I was kind of frustrated a few months ago because it was just a goal I wanted to accomplish and I didn't do it in the time frame I wanted to do it in. And I was kind of like mad, like, God, why you not helping me? Like, you know what I'm saying? And basically now, of course, this is me putting into my own words. He told me, like, man, every time you ask me for something, you get it. You forget how you got it, kind of thing like that. And then I realized I wasn't doing anything with the consistency. I wasn't praying like I needed to be. I wasn't taking the time, just meditating in the word. I ain't touched the Bible in years. Like, and then, like I said, it's crazy because I always had the church in my mind. Like, I want to do this and this in the church, but I always had this mindset where I was like, if I step up in the church, I want to step up and be like rich. Like, I want to step before the church like as a great success story. And it's kind of like almost an ego type thing where you want to stand up there and just look like you the best thing in the world. And I was like, I felt like I would have more credibility in the church if I had more financial success behind me. I think that's what it was. And I realized that was a wrong-headed way of going about it. So yeah, like I said, I'm working on that balance, trying to be more active, trying to just pray more, study more, things of that nature.
I feel that. I feel like that's one of the young things too, and especially like I can speak for not speak for y'all, but speak for us just because
Right.
y'all know we all grew up in the church, so we all we've been taught certain things like since we were young. So I don't think I would never encourage someone to step away from God, but I will say like I think that it's very common for it to be like a step in your personal relationship with God would in a sense be to experience life without God. Like I'm not gonna push nobody away from God. I'm not
Right.
gonna
I get
tell
what you.
you, take a break from God, do things like that. But just naturally, just how other things in life, come about. It's like once you realize how like different it is, like it's kind of crazy once you sit back and realize like why did things seem to be better than what's going on now, and then you got to kind of look at what you were doing that's different, and
Yeah.
and that's something that comes with age too, and as that's the experience being a teacher thing. So yeah, so I will say I feel like me, they say everybody has strayed, so you know
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. You got anything good, Lauren?
Not really. I was just listening to you guys. I disagree with what y'all was saying about experience being a teacher, and sometimes when you're kind of struggling with that relationship with God, it just strengthens it in general once you basically return. You're like, okay, I see why I definitely don't need to be in that place anymore because I was so messed up and things were just out of control. And I definitely related a little bit to what you were saying about like using about like you.
What the?
not there's sunlight over there.
Sorry, y'all. My Wi-Fi went out. Power went out, so I had to go somewhere else.
You said the power went out?
Yeah, in the like apartment, like there's certain apartments that are connected together, so that whole like side of the building went out. But it's
Oh.
okay. We're here.
Well, hey, girl.
Okay, well, I guess you can answer that. You the only one not to answer the question. Do you got it in the chat or you need one us to read it to you? All right.
She muted. I think she's reading.
This is not working.
Okay. I'm gonna read it for you. The question that we're talking about. Oh.
Well, I guess you're not gonna read it.
Okay. Well, we can. I guess we can move on, and we can kind of talk about. I know, Brandon. I know you're not in the chat, but we were talking about some other questions that we can discuss. Even though Kelly's not here, she talked about undressing the interconnection of childhood experience and who you are now. And I think
Hold on just a second, not to cut you off, but so we gonna talk about her topic without her being here? I'm just asking.
I mean,
I think it's
feel
an important
like
question.
I
I
feel
mean,
like we
it
can talk
is. I'm
about
just
it,
saying.
and
I'm
I
just
feel
saying.
like this. I think this is a big enough question that we
Then it could be
can return to, at
right.
another time and still have enough to elaborate on, because it's gonna be a personal thing for everybody on
Everybody's
what
child.
they
Right.
strength. Everything that's different. But
Okay. Well, Lauren, you wanted to talk about it, so
Okay. Hold on, let me reread it one more time. Okay, so my childhood was pretty much very much Christian based and church based childhood. No like witchcraft and things like that. No Harry Potter and stuff
yeah.
like that. I'm laughing about it, but it was just like very serious back then. And I think, how do I say this? I think a lot of the things that we learned in our childhood, basically, literally what the question's saying, we have to unlearn it. Not everything you learned or taught is, to be frank, is healthy for you, and that you may not just need to use it with everyday life. And of course, this isn't to discredit your parents and stuff like that, but there has been situations in my own childhood, and I'm sure in other people's childhood, where you feel like, okay, they could have explained this a little bit better, or they could have dealt with this in a more delicate way, because I am a child, I am growing, and of course I'm not going to know everything right from wrong. But at the same time, with saying that, I think it's important not to hold on to the past, but address it and grow from it.
Yeah.
You can't just, this happened to me when I was younger, so I'm just this way, and I'm not going to do anything to move past it, to fix it, anything like that. I'm going to be stagnant. I think that's the worst thing you can do. It's great to, like I said, it's great to address it, but you have to, okay, how do I unlearn this behavior? How do I take this negative thought and transform it into something else, a learning curve where I can just move past it? I think it's really important to just not basically hold on to the past. I think it's great to address it, like I said, but holding on to it really doesn't do anything but just create a bigger problem and justification for worse things that you will do in your adult life.
That's good.
I feel that, like, for sure. Especially just if we want to just talk about the example you used of, like Harry Potter or witchcraft, stuff like that. So y'all know we grew up. We went to Halloween night. We ain't go trick or treating. Like, we was at church on Halloween, And it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy, Halloween finna come up. So I say we in season 2. But like, so at church, you got people that get to dress up as superheroes, carrots, little different, like this little. I'm saying carrots, that's real random, but you know how babies, they have their own little baby fits,
Right.
Things like that. My people in the crib, they know that no, you're not doing it. Like, it doesn't matter if you're not dressing up as the devil, you're not dressing up as, a scary monster, something like that. They say you're not dressing up. It's not of God, so we're not doing it. Just because they do it, you ain't doing it. And like now, like, so when I went to college, that was my first time when I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get me an outfit, like, I'm gonna be cute. Like, I get to dress up as a different character for Halloween. Like, I think the first thing I dressed up was just like a princess, like, just because I just so happened to have, like, my friend had a little fluffy dress, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And then, like, it popped up on my Snapchat memories today. One year I was a ladybug. I had 2 little things with a different da. And it's just like, to me now, like, that's just cute, innocent fun. As a child, there were times where like, like it wasn't even a situation of me like going to my parents like, can I dress up as this? And like every year they're telling me no, things like that. It's like that's what my parents told me. So like they my parents, so it just has to be right. So no matter how bad I on my own want to dress up, like I'm wrong for wanting to do that, like I shouldn't want to do that. And I'll understand when I'm older on why I shouldn't do that type of thing.
Right.
And so now saying that I've had the experience of not dressing up, like I like to dress up. Like that's what I like to do, like and obviously this is just like a small example of something like stepping away from childhood lessons, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just say that like it's there's levels to it, me personally. I don't know if this is because of all just me or a mixture of me and my parents teaching, but I'm not going to go dress up as the devil. That's something I'm not going to do. And I'm not judging nobody that, you feel me? Hey, but
Right.
that's just me, that's just something that I'm like, that's just, it's pushing it just a little bit to me because I do believe in spirits and, such, such, such. But like, I just felt like that was one of my like really like eye-opening things, like this ain't all that bad. And like I'm also at the age now where it's like my parents can't tell me no, you can't dress up now.
Right.
Like even if they like feel away, which is interesting too, because like one thing you see as you get older, well, you may see as you get older is how your parents' ideals change too, like growing up, like y'all know Twitches with Tia and Tamara, the like witch
Mm-hmm.
movie on Disney Channel. Da, 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 da. It's a great movie. All of them. Both of them are. Mwah, I love them. But like the first time it came out, my mom's like, she's like, I don't know. I didn't grow up watching Halloween Town and like all the other Disney Channel movies, stuff like that. And but they black. That's Tia and Tamara. So they like, okay, well, we'll watch this together. Check it out. Da, 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 da. And it was cool. Harry Potter, another one. I still haven't dived into Harry Potter, but like growing up, that's just like no witchcraft. I couldn't watch Naruto. I will say I watched it now because my parents felt like that was just too intense, things like that. But like now I'm older, and I'm realizing y'all know the show Charmed. Like my mom be watching that. That's a show about witches, and now it's just kind of like you was telling me this and you haven't even touched up on the subject again, and you watching this show, like, but I was wrong for wanting to watch that as a kid, So
Right.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like, dang, it's just really weird to see how like how people just evolve in general, how I've evolved from my parents' teachings, how they've evolved from their own like teachings towards me, and obviously my parents naturally are older than me, like. So like it kind of puts me in a perspective to think that like, Ari was mentioning earlier how like you have those choices to like, change, evolve, and become a new person and things like that. So it's crazy how you really think like it feels like changing and stuff like that or evolving as a person is like a 18 to 25-year-old thing. But I feel like this might just be like that first wave, maybe first wave because everybody life different, but first wave of like discovering yourself. Like maybe every decade or so is like you discover yourself like this, you discover yourself as this,
Right.
and that's just life, but it's just like that initial shock of change that's just like, wow, like life's crazy. That's what it all
I
boiled down to. Life is crazy.
I definitely want to go back on what you were saying about how your parents were basically like, no, you don't need to dress up, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of times in your childhood, your parents, they kind of just almost assume in some cases that you should know right from wrong, but sometimes you're literally just being a child, you're just being innocent. You're not sure that this has this certain implication. Like you were saying, you just wanted to dress up. You weren't thinking about the implication of spirits and ghosts and stuff like that. You saw kids doing this, so obviously human nature, you're gonna want to do it too. And I think it's important for parents. I mean, I'm not a parent, I can't solicit advice, but I think it's important just with raising kids and how fragile just kids and people are in general, but just especially kids, they're just fragile. They're learning. They're not sure of everything they're doing. So instances like this can cause a lasting impact, and I think you should be very careful with just the way you speak and act towards your kids and just kids in general. Like you mentioned that you were probably like 4 or 5, and you still remember now, and you're in your 20s. So that just goes to show that you really just, not to say you have to be sensitive, but you really do have to be sensitive with speaking to kids. And I think this also kind of relates onto something that I was kind of thinking of, and just like kids growing up in the church and just kids seeing like your parents' relationship with the church. And when you're young, obviously you don't have much of a relationship. I'm not gonna say you don't have a relationship with Christ, but you just know I believe in Christ and
Right.
he died for my sins, blah blah blah. But you don't really have a relationship with Christ. You more so have a relationship with church. You see your church friends, you go to the nursery, you
Yeah.
go to Sunday school, blah blah blah. And I think with those type of roles, it's very important to just teach kids to build their own relationship, because if they have a negative relationship with church, they're just gonna associate that with Christianity, with God, and they're just gonna stray away in the future. So I really think those like small moments that you may think, oh, that's not important, they're not gonna remember that. They definitely should be taken heavily.
Yeah, just to touch on that a little bit, because like there's so much I could say. There's so much I could say just because like I think that's been kind of my main, like, I guess like my main overall discovery recently of like me trying to find myself and who I am and like how I fit into the world has a lot to do with me like kind of breaking out, not not in the sense of like breaking out of the idea of what Christianity is supposed to be, but like breaking out of that like mold or person that I am expected to be under the eyes of the church, if that makes sense. Like just like how everything that you guys were saying, I feel like that's kind of my main thing that I've been kind of dealing with, just because like growing up in church, like you have to act a certain way, be a certain way towards people, always be nice to people, you know, like it's I don't know, you're always in the spotlight. And of course, like being like the pastor's granddaughter and all that stuff, like there's an extra pressure that is applied onto me, even though like it doesn't seem like it, but there's
Right.
always this face that I have to put on, this person that I have to be, these things that I have to achieve because of who I am, because of who I'm supposed to be. And so like I feel like that's the main thing that I've kind of been like breaking out of in terms of allowing myself to grow. Like you were saying, Christina, like we all evolve. And I think kind of with the church in general, like it kind of instills like a fear of evolving into us, like a fear of changing. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing wrong with evolving. There's nothing wrong with changing, growing out of traditions and stuff, and still having your own specific relationship with God. And I had brought this up to my dad a few weeks ago, and I was talking to him about like my struggles with like Christianity and like the mold that you're supposed to fit, or like stuff like just implementing the Bible and like putting that into everything else. And he was just saying like it isn't the first thing that comes first. Is always your own relationship with God. Like outside of what everybody says or what you feel like you're supposed to do, if you don't establish a relationship with God in your own personal life, none of that even matters. Because what are you doing it for if you're not connected with God, if you're not talking to God, if you're not allowing him into your life? And so just with that, yeah, I feel like that's kind of like the main thing that I've been dealing with, just like figuring out why I am the way I am. Just like the one thing I've probably been dealing with the most is like people pleasing and trying to make sure that I'm putting myself first above everybody else. And I think like that in general definitely stems from church and having to like be nice all the time and like speak to people in a certain way or present myself as a certain, like just a certain person, because they're like, oh, you're the pastor's granddaughter, or oh, you're Sean and Tiffany's daughter. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And then I'm like, okay, so that's an indication that I have to be that person, be their daughter, be that like ideal, or like, I don't know, just what they feel like is what I'm supposed to be. And so like I feel like that's what I'm kind of figuring out, and like realizing that I don't have to cater to other people. Like I don't have to be a certain way in order for people to like me, or for people to not think of me as an extension of somebody else. Like I am just my own person. And like it's so funny because when I was little, people always tell me like, you look like your mom, you look like your dad. And I'll be like, no, I look like me. Because I always just would hate like people associating me with everything else going on and stuff. And I'll be like, no, like I look like me. I don't know what y'all are talking about, but I am my own person. And so I feel like that's kind of, I guess, like what I've been working on and working with, and kind of just figuring out in terms of like church and stuff. So
Okay, I guess it's my turn. You mind going back to that original question? I just want to make sure I got a full understanding of the question.
Here comes the no, never mind. I was say here comes the author of the question.
She was here, and then
I don't know. But go ahead.
Can't hear you on mute.
That was so embarrassing. It's more of an open-ended like statement, but it says self-discovery as a young adult and undressing the interconnections of childhood experience and who you are becoming. So kind of like your childhood versus who you are now, undressing like childhood trauma or just anything that happened in your childhood.
Okay,
moving into now.
That's interesting because a lot of people do have childhood trauma. Oh no, you're not finna make no. She's too late.